Hey, what's up guys? Little Man with a big opinion here. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about a couple of news articles that I saw in pertaining to why preparing for some sort of global conflict or civil conflict within the United States could be possible. I do have to stress and get it out of the way that I'm not advocating for any type of violence. Just as a prepper, a lot of the videos you see tend to talk about natural disasters, some sort of economic issue with a collapse, or war of any kind. We don't want it to happen, but we don't want the tire on our car to go flat, and so we prepare for situations like this. The most recent and disturbing news article that I saw, which all of these articles I will post a link down below so you can read them and take them with your own grain of salt. Hey kitty, I'm making a video. You can't jump on the table. But satellite images have confirmed that in a desert in China, they have built 119 different missile silos. Now, China does sport about 300 nuclear missiles, up 30 from last year. So they're nowhere close to matching the firepower the United States has at about 2,500. And Russia's got almost double what we have, but they don't really decommission a lot of their warheads. Over half of their arsenal is missiles that they built, from the 50s through the 90s during the majority of the Cold War. So they're not, top of the line missiles, but the biggest nuclear missile that we have today is about 1,200 times more powerful than that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which, got another cat here. We're gonna go somewhere else for this video. Apparently I don't get to make videos in the living room anymore unless I get rid of all the cats. But so modern missiles have about 1,200 times the power. Each nuke dropped during World War II killed roughly 75,000 people. I think it was like 80,000 and 60,000. But we don't want one of them hitting the United States or anywhere. And it's looking like the way China's doing it is they want to be able to say, look, you do something, we've got enough to at least make you hurt a lot. Now, in the article, it does talk about they might not have enough nukes to fill it up, but it could be a shell game, similar to what the United States and Russia did. They built a bunch of facilities, so you wouldn't know exactly where the warheads were. But they could also be building the facilities in anticipation to fill them. That's eventually what we did. And so it's something to be of concern. China, for the last 20 or so years, has been seriously, upping their military game. They produce over 1/3 of all the products used in the world. So they're definitely winning on the economic front. It was a really big story several years back with them contesting large parts of the South China Sea. They started filling in coral reefs with sand, and they've created over a dozen little military installations similar to what we had going on with like Wake and Guam and Midway. So with that, they can claim so many miles out, as their waters before you hit international waters. And a map of that area, you could see all of the overlapping claims between all of the, Southeast Asian countries and like the Pacific Island countries. So, at least on that front, China's trying to expand their borders. They've had an issue with Taiwan forever. And the U.S., the closest thing we're doing is naval war games with Japan. It's a show of force. It's to show that we have a extremely powerful presence in the area. But the United States isn't going to outright, on their own, initiate the first blow for a situation like this. So we are being passively aggressive, but we are going to have to be active instead of proactive in taking the first shot. The next most recent development is China and India are building military infrastructures on their border. China moved about 50,000 troops, and India, returned the gesture and moved about 50,000 troops to their border as well. There was an incident a few years ago. 20 Indian soldiers died, 4 Chinese, and they were able to resolve it peacefully. Each side claimed there was, misinterpretations in their summer trainings. India is claiming that China is using this training maneuver as an excuse to build up that region. It's looking like what happened very similarly between World War I and World War II. You build a bunch of infrastructure to be able to house and deploy your troops much quicker. The Chinese, news-run organization that's run by their government is claiming that the United States doesn't want to start the conflict, and we really don't. But they say we're using India as a proxy war to weaken China. So, as you can see from each of those different things, they're not huge issues in their individual, rights. Oh, they're building 100 nuclear facilities. Well, that's less than 10% of what the United States has. Oh, they're moving troops to India, and India isn't someone that we're huge allies with or huge enemies with. They're kind of a neutral party. Why do we care about their war? But all of these things individually can be tied together, and you can see a growing tension within the world. You can also think about Thucydides' trap. We're coming up to about the 80-year period. Last time was World War II. Time before that was the American Civil War. And the time before that was the Revolutionary War. So, huge points in the United States history. And this theory, believes that we have a huge undertaking every 80 or so years. So, keep that in mind as well. And then the last thing that I was reading on this front was China is increasing their presence in Taiwanese airspace. Most recently, I think it was either 26 planes or it was 26 sorties. I don't remember exactly. But either one, they flew within the Taiwanese, air defense system. Not very far. They turned around quickly, and it was more of a, hey, technically you could have shot at us, and that would have given us all the justification, but you didn't, so it shows our power. And the big issue with Taiwan is they produce a majority of the world's chips. Goes in computers, military equipment, and if China were ever to lay siege and claim Taiwan, then the economic front would, teeter ever more in their favor. So as a prepper, what can you do in these situations? Not a whole lot of anything. The biggest thing you can do is try to buy locally, try to buy U.S.-made products. That would not really stem the tide. You would need, a large percentage of the United States and even the world to stop accepting Chinese-made stuff. But, I don't even know where Lysol wipes are made. And of course, when I want to look at it, I can't find the exact spot. Distributed, it only shows where it's distributed from, which is New Jersey. But I could take a pretty good bet that the plastic container probably comes from good old China. Let's take a look at this toilet paper. It only says where it's distributed from. But a lot of our products are made in China. I can almost guarantee you the t-shirt I'm wearing was made in China. So it's the same argument with climate change. You know, the corporations are trying to push the burden on individual people. Technically, the corporations produce most of the greenhouse gases. But if, within a generation, 20% of U.S. households stopped using and went to renewable energy, you would see a pretty dramatic decline, at least on the individual side versus the corporation side. So it's the same with Chinese-made products. One person's not going to change anything. 1,000 probably wouldn't, and even 1,000,000 might not make a huge dent in their economic grab for power. It would take a massive amount of Americans and the world. But if you don't buy Chinese-made products, you at least know on your side you're doing the right thing. That does mean looking at the back of every single thing you buy, but it is what it is. The other thing, keep preparing for the situations that you prepare for. If we were in some sort of global conflict, it would only exacerbate natural disasters that we have going on. Government funding and entities would probably be more focused on a war than the home front. So it will turn into a fend for yourself. If something were to ever happen on U.S. soil, then supplies would be disrupted even more. And so making sure you have your food and water and your security items prepared will just make it more difficult. I mean, Admiral Yamamoto said after the bombing of Pearl Harbor that an invasion of mainland U.S. would be impossible because there would be a firearm behind every blade of grass. That's a little bit different now, especially with the massive divide in the U.S. and a big part of it being centered around the Second Amendment. But you yourself can have guns. You yourself can, prepare for situations like that. And this video really isn't trying to give you, prepper knowledge on how to prepare for these things. I'm just kind of being a news guy today and letting you know these situations are happening in the world, and it's something that you need to be aware of so that you can better make decisions to protect yourself, your family, and your friends, your prepping group, whatever you want to call it. If you had not heard these stories, like the video. If you have friends or family that have not heard of these news articles, then share the video with them. The channel is slowly growing, so sharing with like-minded individuals will help it grow. And lastly, subscribe because I make a ton of videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.